Hello, long time no see. This episode I filmed back in January of this year, 2024. So I do apologize for the hodgepodge put together editing that I did on this. I was the beginnings of my channel and I still was learning how I wanted to film and edit my videos. But I also wanted to share this at this present time because it coincides beautifully with the stories I'll be sharing of the very beginnings of my van life journey. So on this, I take you back to my 4-year anniversary with my van and how I had conquered my fear from an accident that caused me not to want to drive vans to me now living in a van. I also feel that I should give a warning, for this may be a trigger to some people. Viewers' discretion advised. And today, this guy and I are celebrating 4 years together. And we have a weekend getaway planned, and I'll share our story on how we met and how I overcame my fear. So why would one fear a van? Well, for me, it goes back to 2001. I was driving my client and his family back from a weekend getaway, and we were in a Chevy Astra van that was modified for a wheelchair, so it had a high top to it. I was driving down a 2-lane highway. I had a cube van that was riding on my backside. I had a 2-trailer semi-truck in front of me and extremely heavy crosswinds. I had to make a decision, for I did not feel safe. There was no place for me to pull over. I patiently waited for the broken lines to pass the semi, and I did so, and everything was going just fine until all of a sudden it wasn't no more. And I don't really want to get too detailed into the whole story of the accident itself, but I will tell you that there was a fatality, and it happened to be my client. And that there is what made me so fearful of driving vans. It actually made me fearful of driving. Thanks to the encouragement of my doctor and my sister, I was able to get back on the road. I just never ever stepped foot in a van again. I only ever drove cars. Let's fast forward to 2018. At this time, I had left my partner of 16 years a year prior to. Now, during that time with my partner, we had tried a couple times for me to go past the accident scene. I just couldn't do it. So now I start dating. I hadn't done that in like 17 years. Online dating, what is that? I was so lost. I was laying in bed one day, and all of a sudden this name pops into my head, and it was Rob. And then all this other information started coming to my head. What their job was, when their birth date was, what their hobbies were. I was like, I even found out where I was going to meet them. I go, this is very interesting. And 3 months later, I met Rob. And everything that came to my mind that night was all true. So after a few weeks or so, Rob had called me and asked if I was still at his apartment. I said, yes, I am. I was just getting ready to leave. He says, great. The garbage truck is there and he can't get into the bins because my van's in the way. My keys are hanging up. Can you please move it? And I'll see you later. And he hung up the phone. So I grab the keys and I go to the van and start it up, throw it in reverse, back it out, throw it into drive, and take it a couple stalls over. Wow, I had never been so proud of myself to overcome that fear of driving a van. So when I saw him later, I had shared my story with him and how proud I was that I had conquered the fear. Well, of course, on the other hand, he felt bad because he had no idea. We never talked about it. Stepping forward a couple months, I still wasn't comfortable driving a van. I felt there was something else I still needed to do. And that something was the thing I tried to do 2 other times. I needed to go to the accident scene. And that's what I did. As I was driving through the area, I kind of had this feeling of this is where the accident happened, but I wasn't sure because it happened on our way back through that area. So I drove to the next town and drove around. We also have to remember this had happened almost 20 years ago, so even the landscape and everything has changed since then. So I'm driving back and I hit this section of highway and I'm like, this kind of looks like the spot, but not really. And then I noticed there was a memorial marker on the side of the road. So I'd stopped and walked across and read the name. It wasn't him. So I got back in my car and continued driving. About 5 minutes down the road, I'm now driving through where I know this is where the accident happened. And the whole memory of it is just flashing back through my head. I look over to my left where the van would have landed, and what stands there before me? This huge elk with a massive rack looking right at me. So of course in my head I'm like, we gotta look up what the meaning is of the elk when I got into Wi-Fi. But it just felt so powerful when I saw it, and I felt so much at ease. And to be honest, I kind of felt like it was the person who had died. There's two things that I remember when I looked up the meaning of the elk: strength and cinema. And that is exactly what I needed for the 2 years of legality torture that I went through. I had 36 charges, and only 2 of them I remember. One of them was vehicle manslaughter, and the other is what I was charged with, which was unsafely passing on the left. I was very fortunate to have a caring and understanding judge. This must have just been from the big storm that we had last week. Wow. Those waves must have been pretty massive to push it all the way up into here. So now let's take a little jump to January of 2020. Rob and I are no longer together. I was kind of back on the dating scene again. I got a message from this guy, and he was very adamant that he had to meet me. So we made plans to meet in a public place. Well, I get there, he's not there yet. 15 minutes later, he still hasn't around. I was like, oh well, no big deal, because I had another reason why I was in that area to begin with. So it was no loss to me to be ghosted, right? So I look at my phone to see my last message from him, and it's when I finally actually noticed his name. And he went by Bob. Well, Robert, Rob, Bob. And this guy's last name was also a connection to Rob. Once I put my phone back away, all of a sudden I hear my name being called from behind me. And I turn around and there is this handsome man. I'm saying to myself, going, why did he want to meet me? Why was that so urgent? So anyways, we walked and we talked and had a few laughs and get back to my car. And he's like, wow, you got an awful lot of stuff on here. And I have a mobile massage business, so all my massage gear was in there. I said, yeah, I'm thinking about getting myself a new vehicle in May. He says, oh, what are you going to get? I said, oh, an SUV or something. He says, I think you should get a Dodge Grand Caravan. I said, you do you now? About a week after meeting Bob, and by the way, Bob didn't last more than that day, I went for a walk with a friend. She just got a new job out of town, and her truck just wasn't reliable. So with me tossing with the decision of getting a new car, I thought this is kind of like the perfect opportunity. I had 2 more payments left, so I offered it to her if she wanted to make those payments, and the car was hers. And she had agreed with it. This is inside of a tree. Oh my gosh. I can honestly say I have never done this before. I go to the dealership and I tell them what I plan on doing with my friend. They said, oh, that's no problem. We can do that for you. So we proceed to go ahead and do a test drive. And what do they bring out? A Dodge Grand Caravan. Now, when I had met Rob, he was driving a Dodge Grand Caravan. And that was the van that I had to move when the garbage truck came. Though he only had it for a couple more weeks after that, so I didn't really get a chance to drive it. Well, on this test drive, I fell in love. And there I was, sitting up like a queen bee in her big high chair, driving around all confident and just loving all the views. Because you don't get to see very much when you're in a low car. So here I'm like a whole new world, because I'm like, there was a marsh there? I never noticed there was ever a marsh there. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience, and I was very excited to make this change in my life. So I call my friend and tell her everything's a go, and that's when she informed me that she had changed her mind. But I still went ahead and thought, you know what, let's see what they'll go ahead and give me for a trade-in on my car. So that's what I did. I was not impressed with the numbers, not at all. I went to go stand up from my seat and kindly refused the offer. But it felt like this big, giant, human-sized hand pushed me right back down in that seat. So that's what I did. And before I knew it, I was signing papers away to that Dodge Grand Caravan. I wasn't at all happy about signing those papers, but I continued to do so. So my sales guy had asked the other sales guy, what color would you classify that van? And the other sales guy had said metallic. I was like, oh my, Metallica. That was the very first concert I ever went to in 1993. Lars, the drummer. Ah, that's what I'll name the van. I'll have to look up the name meaning of Lars. All the papers were signed now. All that was left to do, then it was time to get in the van and start it up. I'll never forget driving off that lot. I looked behind my shoulder. Why do I feel like I'm going to be living in this thing? And before I forget, Lars stands for God has helped. Stay tuned for the next episode to find out how. Until then, take care of yourself. Enjoy your life. Bye-bye.